At my son's wedding, I stood up with a smile on my face, but instead of raising a toast, I exposed the truth that shattered every illusion he had built around me. My name is Evelyn Carter. I'm 72 years old. And if you think by that age life finally quiets down, that you've seen it all, lived it all, and earned the right to peace, you'd be wrong. I thought I was done with heartbreak. I buried my husband, I raised my son, I gave and gave until I had nothing left to give. I believed family was worth every sacrifice. But what happens when the very people you poured your soul into treat you as nothing more than a bank account with feelings? For years I stayed quiet. I smiled through the insults, the manipulation, the whispered jokes I wasn't supposed to hear. I told myself it was just stress, just family drama, just the rough edges of love. But the day came when I couldn't ignore it anymore. The day my son and his wife tried to strip me not just of my money, but of my dignity. That was the day I decided to strike back. And I didn't do it in secret. I chose their wedding day, a room full of family, friends, neighbors, and I gave the speech no one would ever forget. But before I tell you what I said and the looks on their faces when I pulled out the proof, let me take you back. Because the truth is, betrayal doesn't come out of nowhere. It grows slowly, like a crack in the foundation of a house, spreading silently until one day the whole thing caves in. And that's exactly what happened to me. When I was younger, I used to believe love was enough. Love could weather storms, patch up holes, and pull a family through any hardship. I was only 21 when I met Thomas Carter. He wasn't rich, he wasn't flashy, but he had the kind of steady heart you could build a life around. We raised our son Michael in a small southern town where everybody knew your business. Thomas worked hard, I kept the house, and life, though simple, felt safe. But life has a way of changing the script on you. Thomas passed suddenly, far too young, a heart attack, quick and cruel, and just like that, I was a widow, alone with a teenage son who had only just started to find his way in the world. From that day on, Michael became my purpose, my reason to get up every morning. I poured everything into him, my time, my money, my very soul. Every sacrifice felt worth it if it meant he could have a better life. And when he brought home Vanessa, the young woman he said was the one, I told myself I would open my arms and welcome her too. That's what family does. At first, Vanessa was charming, sweet smile, quick laugh, always bringing me flowers or calling me mom with a sugary tone. But there was something in her eyes, a calculation, like she was already planning her next move. I brushed it off, told myself I was being paranoid. After all, Michael was happy, and wasn't that what mattered most? But here's the thing about small towns. Secrets don't stay buried forever. I started to notice little things. The way Vanessa sits compliments always came with a barb. Oh, Evelyn, that sits such a lovely dress. My mother says lace like that is very old-fashioned. Or how Michael, once my chatterbox, started agreeing less with me and more with her. Mom, Vanessa sits right. Maybe you shouldn't be driving so much these days. Little chips at my confidence, at my independence. And then came the money. Always just a little help here and there. Rent. A new couch. Bills they were a little short on. I didn't hesitate. That's what mothers are for, I told myself. But what I didn't realize then was that every check I wrote, every dollar I handed over was another thread in the net they were weaving around me. A net meant to trap me, to strip me of everything until I had nothing left but them. And by the time I saw it clearly, I was already caught. Looking back now, I can see the moment the shift began. At first, it was so subtle, I almost convinced myself I imagined it. The holidays used to be my favorite time of year. I'd cook, decorate, and watch Michael's face light up like a little boy again. But once Vanessa was in the picture, those gatherings changed. It wasn't about the memories anymore, it was about the gifts. Michael really needs a new laptop for work, Vanessa would say casually, handing me a brochure at Christmas dinner. But of course, we can afford it right now. And I'd laugh, write a check, and tell myself it was fine. But soon it wasn't just Christmas, it was birthdays. Anniversaries, Tuesdays, every occasion seemed to come with a price tag, and somehow I was always the one paying. At first I didn't mind. I thought, if this makes them happy, if it keeps the family close, what harm can it do? But then came the whispers. One evening I walked past their living room while visiting, and I heard Vanessa on the phone with her friends. She was laughing, a laugh that wasn't sweet at all, but sharp, cutting. She sits like an ATM with feelings, Vanessa said, her voice dripping with mockery. Honestly, it sits almost funny how easy it is. Just a sigh, a pout, and she hands over the money. My heart stopped. And then the sound that broke me, my son's laugh. Michael, my own flesh and blood, laughing along with her. I wanted to burst into the room, scream, demand to know how they could say such a thing, but I froze. I stood in the hallway, clutching the wall to steady myself as their laughter echoed around me like nails on glass. From that night on, everything I did, every dollar I gave, every visit I made, I wondered, was I being mocked? Were they laughing at me behind closed doors? And the answer was a truth I couldn't bear to face. The requests became bigger, bolder. Vanessa's ideas turned into outright demands: a new car, a vacation, an investment in a boutique she wanted to start. And when I hesitated, when I dared to say I couldn't, her tone would turn icy. Well, if you can support us, Evelyn, she snapped, maybe you should think about whether you really want to be part of this family. And Michael, he never defended me. Not once. The boy I had raised, the man I had sacrificed everything for, just sat there silent, or worse, nodding along. Piece by piece, I felt myself shrinking, my independence, my voice, my dignity slipping through my fingers like sand. Until one night when Vanessa made a suggestion that chilled me to the bone. We were at dinner, and out of nowhere, she leaned across the table with that practiced sweet smile and said, "You know, Evelyn, maybe it's time you thought about moving into assisted living. You're still getting older. It would take so much pressure off of us." The words hit me like a punch. Assisted living, me. The woman who still drove herself to the market every week, who tended her own garden, who lived independently since her husband passed. It wasn't about my well-being, it was about my house, my home, the only piece of Thomas I still had left. That's when I realized they weren't just draining me, they were planning to strip me of everything. And the worst part, I was starting to believe they might succeed. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon. Funny how moments that change your life forever don't arrive with thunder or lightning. Sometimes they come with a simple knock at your door. Michael and Vanessa showed up unannounced, their faces wearing that strange mix of urgency and forced cheer. I invited them in, set out tea, pretending not to notice the way Vanessa's eyes were already scanning my living room, as if tallying up what could be sold. "We've got an opportunity," Vanessa began, crossing her legs and flashing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "A real business venture. My friend's sixth cousin is opening a boutique, and with just a little help from you, say $20,000, we could get in on the ground floor." I nearly dropped my cup. 20,000. I had given them plenty before, but never a sum like that. My voice shook when I answered. Sorry, Vanessa, I can sit." The room went silent. Michael shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. Vanessa's smile froze, then melted into something sharp. "Can sit," she repeated, her voice dripping with disdain, "or one sit." "I've helped as much as I can," I said, forcing the words out. "I have to think about my own future. I can keep." Her hand slammed against the armrest, startling both Michael and me. "Do you hear yourself? After everything we've done for you, after all the times we've included you, made you part of our lives." My heart pounded. Included me, as if I should be grateful for being used. I looked to my son, my Michael, my only child. "Michael," I whispered, "you know I can keep this up." But he wouldn't meet my eyes. He stared at the floor, jaw tight, letting Vanessa speak for them both. That was the moment something inside me broke. For years I had told myself he was under pressure, that he loved me but didn't want to upset his wife. But seeing him sit there in silence, letting her tear me apart, I realized the truth. It wasn't just Vanessa. It was him too. From then on, things only got worse. Calls filled with guilt trips. Vanessa's icy glares, Michael's clipped tone when I didn't answer quickly enough. Until finally one evening at dinner, Vanessa leaned in with that same saccharine smile and said, "Maybe Evelyn should move into assisted living. She'd be safer there. And then Michael and I could take care of the house, make sure it stays in the family." The way she said it, like she was doing me a favor, made bile rise in my throat. I saw the plan clearly then. They weren't just trying to drain me, they were trying to erase me. For a moment I felt dizzy, like the walls were closing in, but then a spark lit inside me. I thought of Thomas. I thought of the years I had spent surviving without him, holding this family together with my bare hands. And I realized I wasn't weak, I wasn't helpless. They thought they could strip me of everything, but they had no idea who they were dealing with. And when the wedding announcement came, I knew exactly what I had to do. The wedding announcement arrived like a slap in the face. Not because my son was getting married, I should have been happy about that. A mother's heart should swell with joy at such news. But deep down, I knew what this wedding was really about. The invitations gleamed with gold lettering. The venue was one of the most expensive in the state. The guest list stretched pages long. It wasn't a celebration of love, it was a performance, a stage. and once again I was expected to pay for the show. When I asked how they planned to afford it, Vanessa's lips curled into that cold smile. Oh, Evelyn, we were hoping you Sitch'd contribute. After all, it's Sitch's family. That word family tasted bitter on my tongue. That night, alone in my quiet house, I sat at the kitchen table staring at the bills, the checkbook, the endless trail of money I had poured into them, and something in me shifted. No more. If they thought they could use me to bankroll their fairy tale, they had another thing coming. But I also knew this words alone wouldn't save me. I needed proof, something undeniable, something that would strip away their smiles and show the world who they really were. So I went digging, first through my own records. I gathered every bank statement, every check stub, every transfer I had made to Michael and Vanessa over the years. The numbers were staggering, tens of thousands of dollars, enough to buy myself a new car, take a trip, or fix up the house, all gone into their pockets. Then I reached out to an old friend, Mr. Harris, a retired lawyer who had known Thomas back in the day. He came over one afternoon, and as we sat with tea, I laid it all out for him. When he finished reading, he whistled low. Evelyn, this is exploitation. You've been carrying them on your back for years. I nodded, my throat tight. They don't see it that way. To them, I sitch 'em just the ATM. His eyes softened, but his voice was firm. Then maybe it's time you show them what happens when the ATM stops spitting out money. That was the first time in months I felt a flicker of power. Mr. Harris helped me organize the evidence. We compiled files, receipts, even little messages Vanessa had sent me, texts filled with guilt trips, thinly veiled threats, and her favorite line, "If you really cared about us, you sit help." Piece by piece, the puzzle came together, not a portrait of a loving couple, but of parasites. And the more I worked, the stronger I felt. Still, I knew if I exposed them too early, they'd twist the story, make me look bitter, senile, ungrateful. No, I needed the perfect moment. And then it hit me. The wedding. Their big day. The day they planned to parade me in front of everyone as their doting benefactor. That would be the day I turned the tables. I could almost see it, Vanessa's smug smile melting, Michael's silence cracking, guests whispering, gasps echoing across the hall. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was planning, and the wedding day would be my battlefield. The morning of the wedding, I stood in front of my mirror and took a long look at myself. Not the tired woman I'd become, but the Evelyn who had once built a life with her bare hands. I pinned back my silver hair, slipped into my best navy dress, and clasped Thomas's watch on my wrist, a reminder I wasn't alone. In my handbag, tucked neatly between tissues and lipstick, were the files Mr. Harris helped me prepare. Every receipt, every statement, every ugly little message, proof, my weapon. The venue was grand. Crystal chandeliers glimmered above white roses, violins played softly, and the air buzzed with gossip. Guests smiled, sipped champagne, and whispered about the lavishness of it all. I wondered as I walked in how many thought I had paid for this spectacle. The ceremony passed in a blur. Vanessa glowed in her gown. Michael looked nervous but proud. They kissed, applause thundered, and for a moment I felt the old ache, the wish that things could have been different, that my son could still be mine. But then came the reception. The toast began. Vanessa's maid of honor spoke. Michael fumbled through a few awkward jokes, and finally Vanessa herself stood with her glass raised. I have to thank Evelyn, she cooed into the microphone, her eyes glittering, the best mother-in-law anyone could ask for, always so generous, always so supportive. A ripple of polite laughter followed. My stomach turned, and then it was my turn. I rose slowly, the room falling quiet, every eye on me, the sweet old widow about to deliver a sentimental speech. I lifted my glass and smiled. Family, I began, my voice steady. It's supposed to mean love, loyalty, sacrifice, and I sit given all of that, more than anyone here will ever know. Michael shifted in his chair, Vanessa's smile wavered. I continued. Over the years, I paid for apartments, cars, vacations, even little luxuries no one needs but some people demand. Gasps whispered across the room. Vanessa sits, cheeks flushed. Michael muttered, "Mom, stop." But I didn't sit. I reached into my bag, pulled out the folder, and laid the papers on the table for all to see. Here are the receipts, the transfers, the proof, tens of thousands of dollars. I gave and gave and gave until I was nothing but, in their own words, an ATM with feelings. The room went dead silent. Vanessa sits, face twisted. "You bitter old—" "Quiet," I snapped. my voice like steel. You think I didn't hear you? You think I didn't know the way you mocked me, used me? And I turned to Michael, my son, the boy I once rocked to sleep. You sat there and laughed while she did it. His mouth opened, but no words came. I straightened, shoulders back, my voice carrying across the hall. For years you drained me, tried to strip me of my dignity, my freedom, even my home. But today it ends. The wallet is closed, the ATM is empty, and I am done being your fool. Guests gasped, some covered their mouths, others looked away, embarrassed, ashamed for them. Vanessa shoved back her chair, storming out, her veil catching on a guest chair. Michael stumbled after her, his face pale, avoiding my eyes. And me? I stood tall, lifted my glass once more, and said the only words that felt right. To freedom. The guests erupted, some clapped, some whispered, some just stared, but I didn't care. For the first time in years, I felt free. When the wedding was over, the gossip spread faster than wildfire. Neighbors whispered in the market. Old friends called me just to say they were proud. Strangers I barely knew stopped me in church to squeeze my hand and whisper, "You were brave." Michael and Vanessa, they vanished. No calls, no visits, not even a word of apology. They packed their bags after the honeymoon and moved 3 towns over. I heard rumors that Vanessa raged at him for letting me humiliate her, that Michael started drinking more, that the perfect picture cracked the moment the cameras were gone. But I didn't chase after them. For the first time in my life, I didn't beg for their love. Because I finally understood, love isn't proven by how much you give until there's nothing left of you. It's proven by respect, by kindness, by truth, and they had given me none of those things. I cut off every transfer, every check, every line of credit that had my name on it. The phone calls that did come, screaming, guilt-ridden, demanding, went unanswered. Instead, I began to rebuild. I took the money I would have wasted on them and used it for myself. I fixed up the kitchen Thomas had always dreamed of remodeling. I planted a rose garden in the backyard. I even signed up for a painting class at the community center, something I'd put off for years, telling myself I was too old. And you know what? I wasn't too old. Not for that. Not for life. With Mr. Harris's help, I also set up a small scholarship fund in Thomas's name for young people who wanted to study but didn't have support. Watching a girl from our town hold her award certificate, tears in her eyes, I thought this is what my money should have been doing all along. Not fueling greed, but fueling dreams. Still, the ache remained. At night, I sometimes lay awake, staring at the ceiling, remembering the little boy who once ran into my arms after school, the boy who used to beg for one more bedtime story. That boy was gone, and I had to grieve him too. But even in that grief, I felt something stronger, peace, because I had faced them, I had spoken the truth aloud, and I had not let their betrayal define me. I stood on my porch one summer evening, the sky painted in streaks of gold, and whispered into the wind, "Thomas, I did it." I stood up. I finally stood up. And in the quiet rustle of the roses behind me, I could almost hear his voice, proud and steady. "I knew you would, Evelyn. I knew you would." So if you ever find yourself shrinking, bending, breaking under the weight of someone else's greed, remember this. It is never too late to stand up. Never too late to say no. And never too late to take back your life. Because sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't anger or spite or even justice. It's freedom.